Hi, this is Lee Bellinger, publisher of Off Grid Confidential, with my friend Eric Kramer this week on the Bellinger Report. Eric,
Mm,
we got a lot to talk about today. Why don't you start off? I think we've talked about a few things we wanted to cover just before our meeting here.
Well, I got to start off with the map behind your head. Like, what's up with why the map of ancient Greece?
Well, it's something I have in common with the leftists. It's a borderless map. These are the map is these are just migrational maps. And it's actually pre-borders. So this was essentially before civilization was founded, and people started putting up, fences and borders, and it's migrational. So people and now we're going back to the old days under Joe Biden. So now it's we don't have a border anymore, and it's really amazing when you offer everybody freebies to come and crash our
Yeah.
border with all those regulations and everything that you and I follow in the business, and yet they encourage people to come in and break the law, with impunity. Yet we're the ones who are slaving away on the to all the compliance people in the business, and here we are slaving away, and all we really needed to do is sneak across the border to mooch free food and free medical care, and we wouldn't have all these compliance problems that you have to have with a modern business to make a payroll anymore. So go figure, huh?
For some reason, I think when most people have stuff behind me, like I do behind their head, I don't have any good explanations like that.
Is
That's
that
pretty.
a is that
That,
an Air Force insignia on the back on your flag there?
yeah, I was 5 years in the Air Force. Believe it or not, no laughing from you, but I was in intelligence. I know military and
I'm not
intelligence.
that good at keeping a straight face. You were
Yeah,
in
I know.
intelligence.
Yeah, I know military and intelligence is an oxymoron, but yes, I was in intelligence for 5 years.
Did
Yeah,
you?
I probably should have stayed in, but I got out.
Well, when I was at Hillsdale College, I used to be a student driver, and Hillsdale has like the Center for Constructive Alternatives. So they have all these bigwigs that come to that little campus in South Central Michigan, and I was a wheels man, and I was pretty obsessed about driving the big celebrities, and I drove everybody, and one of them was CIA Director William Colby, former CIA Director William Colby, and I was alone
Hmm.
with this guy for like 2 days as his host, student host. I took him out. He got drunk. Took him out to drink, and took him out to and drove him around, and he was fun and nice man, and so we talked about a lot of stuff, and I actually got on the subject of UFOs with him, and he said some pretty astonishing things to me that I found interesting. We don't need to go into it now, but another time perhaps I can tell you what he said then, and that was, of course, back in the 80s.
In the 80s. What did
So
he say then?
he said, in essence, if I discuss it, I'll have to kill you.
Okay, there you go.
he uh he had a little fun with me, but I had but I'd been a UFO skeptic actually all my life until about 3 years ago, and I'm find myself wondering, mainly because the government seems to have shifted its positions so radically, and I pay attention to stuff like that. Why would they go from ridiculing people to actually almost not ridiculing them? So they're actually, I mean, that's a big change, and I may not be that great as a human being, person to person, but I do understand mass psychology, and when you make a change like that, it suggests to me that they're trying to prepare people for some announcement, but I'm just saying there's something very curious about it that they're not ridiculing the people who see things, and in fact, they're allowing Navy people to talk about it and on the record and commercial pilots and so forth. And there seems to be kind of an openness to discussing it, which maybe the government's just relaxed on it. Now in the last budget Trump passed, he did put a proviso that they're going to release a bunch of new information,
Yeah.
so that is a bit of a curiosity, and I don't think that the Russians and the Chinese have craft that are capable of doing what these unidentified aerial objects are doing. So go figure, something interesting is afoot. What it is, I don't know, but but these are not air breathing engines, and they're going into they're making maneuvers that really are, frankly, would kill anything in it, include, so I don't know. But
Well, interestingly, that long answer you gave when you said something about, you might not be the best with human to human. I was expecting you to say like you're great with humans to aliens or something like that. But you kind of went into this big long dissertation. But that's okay. That was it was enlightening and interesting. Now,
uh,
on the other side,
I've
I've been
never
an
heard of a
alien.
dissertation that was interesting, but okay.
Yeah. Hey, I've been an alien person. I started off back in the, I think it was the 80s, the late great Planet Earth, and Eric Van Dyneken, who's like the father of ancient aliens. I've watched, I haven't in the last couple of years, but I've in the beginning years. I mean, and it's up to like I don't know how many seasons now. It's like 20 seasons or something. But I always watched Ancient Aliens, and one thing I've always said about it, if it wasn't for aliens, and it's hard for us to believe, and maybe people don't want us to believe, whatever it is, if you ever watch all the information and look at the proof they put out there, it's as good as most of the science that we believe on anything else. I mean,
Well, that's the other thing that's
they put
convincing.
forth amazing arguments and
Well,
information.
we're rapidly solving a lot of the mysteries of the universe, and it is very, very clear that that life is extremely probable. And I mean, we may not find the exact proof of it in our lifetime because of the distances in our solar system, but I think you're going to find that it's a pretty common thing. So, um, and we could go into that discussion sometime,
Yeah,
but we have political stuff to talk about.
yeah, yeah.
So why
Like,
don't you let's kick it off?
well, the craziest thing I've ever heard you say, which I've heard a little bit or quite a bit actually, you were babbling something about why you think Harris should be sworn in. Kamala.
Well, Camilla, yeah. So first of all, Joe is seen by a lot of people as a moderate, and he's enjoying a 60% approval rating right now. And the old saying is that Joe Biden is so boring that his Secret Service name is Joe Biden. And the thing is, so
Good.
so he reminds me, but he's going to get us into a damn war. I believe that the contempt for him is enormous on the part of the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians. And I could see all three of those powers making simultaneous land grabs, like, for example, China grabbing Taiwan, while at the same time attacking our satellite systems and hitting us with an EMP. And I think that there's a 1 in 3 chance we're looking at a sneak attack. Do you remember learning in school about FDR and how sick he was at Yalta when he gave away half of Europe to the Eastern Europeans, and it resulted in 40 years of Cold War. Nuclear Armageddon came close to almost destroying the human race, all because he was a sick old man at Yalta. And that's what you've got. He's dangerously unaware of what's going on around him, and there's nobody that I dislike more than Kamala as president. But at least that would be truth in advertising, because I think her people are already running the show. They're running radical leftist, and I don't think she's got the political skills to be popular for indefinite amount of time. She simply doesn't have the political skills, and then they'll have to carry her baggage. She did very poorly in the Democratic primaries.
Yeah, she
She
wasn't
didn't.
popular enough to even get 1% of the vote. I mean, that's why she
She's
dropped
an
out.
insufficient politician,
Yeah.
and really, President Biden, he looks like a hideous mannequin that they roll out. And I mean, how the hell is he going to meet with a foreign leader? Think
Yeah.
about it. How the hell is he going to do that? What conclusions are they going to draw that they see everybody doing? They see us giving away energy independence and a lot of other stupid things that they know are stupid, and undoing things that we shouldn't be undoing, and going, higher tax rates, less competitive tax rates, less competitive economy, and a bunch of idiots running around free. Our ally is Israel, and they're not even talking to Israel. They're sucking up to Iran. They're giving away energy independence, so we're going to have to get involved in Middle East affairs again. And we're talking about high energy prices and the whole smack. So we look stupid. Trump might have been didn't play well with others, but there I wasn't worried about us being attacked either. Not with him. His ego was too big. They knew if Trump were attacked and he looked bad on the evening news, he wouldn't tolerate it. You know this when Obama was president. Remember when they captured one of our frigates and they had the guys all standing up like this
Yeah.
and all that? Do you really think Trump would allow something like that as compared to Biden? No, no, hell no. So Kamala Harris, if and I realize this is a controversial idea, but if you if you swore her in, um, they would lose their she would lose her popularity very quickly. But Joe's sitting there hiding and riding high in the polls by just saying nothing and doing nothing and being, beyond passive. And yet he's got all these people working very, very hard behind him, all these radical leftists. We can't see their faces. What the hell's up with that? We can't see their faces. And at least with her up there, we would see her face and people could see how she thinks. And I think over a period of time, she might have a big boost for a little while, but I think that she would turn a lot of people off. She doesn't seem to have the political skills, in my opinion, to govern effectively, like in House and Senate. So you would need a fairly skilled individual to with the Democrats have a 5 vote majority in the House, and they've got a 50 in the Senate. That requires skill to make things happen in those bodies, even with the media on your side. So and you're already seeing that the Manchin is he came out and he said, I'm not going for this. I'm not going to go for a partial deal, and so that already puts them at jeopardy of being able to pass the big ticket items, HR1, statehood for the District of Columbia. Those things are off the table right now. So that's good news. That's good news. That's actually a really big piece of news. Um, I'm not
So one
saying
of
they're
the
not going to
things
get
you,
it done, but they
yeah.
might. Right now, they've got problems with that, with those radical stuff and the court packing as well.
One of the things you mentioned about Biden's poll rate polls, I was reading earlier in the week. Liz Peek did a whole study or review, but she said, "Look, don't believe what mainstream media is telling you about them polls. Yeah, he's in the 50s or 52% approval." But she said, what's happening when you look at the polls when Rasmussen runs them and they compare them week to week or month to month, however it is,
I saw
what
that.
what's happening is that his strongly disapprove and strongly approve numbers are dropping within that immensely. Like he had a 6 to 7 point drop from week to week and strongly approve of like how he's handling the border. Also, how, what do they think of, what he's doing overall in the presidency? He's running like 35, 37, 38% in the different questions that they ask, strongly disapprove, which
Oh
is huge.
yes,
Those are
yes,
huge numbers.
yes,
And his strongly approve is in the low 30s. So,
yes.
he is not, what they want us to believe is somehow they have this mandate and how everybody out there is all for their agenda and all for everything they're doing. It's a lie. I
Oh
mean, it is
yes.
not true. I mean, so don't give up hope. I mean, it's not like, hey, everybody's like cheering. I mean, do you still see anybody outside waving Joe Biden flags? No. You
Hell
know,
no.
but yeah, there. So that gives us some good news. I mean, maybe that's a good segue into winners and losers of the week.
Let's talk about it.
I think I can actually say in a way maybe that's a winner right there. Is
That's a winner.
some of the sentiment or the popularity of Biden is eroding, even though mainstream media is they're going to continually prop him up, and look what they did to Trump to make him look the other way. So just hold on to that. Don't think everything's lost. So
That's right. And then there the unionization bid of Amazon failed, and that's going to create another rift inside the left. And a lot of those workers, they'll never get the unions, but a lot of the rank and file people will go back to Trump, or whoever the presidential candidate is next time around. And by the way, just another loser of the week was Mitch McConnell, because President Trump, he did an interview with Hannity the other night, and the thing that jumped out at me was Trump he was coy about whether he's going to run for president again. But one thing he did say is that he's the one that's going to lead the charge to take the House and Senate back in 22, 2022. So um, that's really great because number one, whether Joe is popular or not, his party are not going to turn out. Our party will turn out. They'll turn out in massive numbers, um, and they're going to be very anxious to take the House and Senate back. So it's not that, and that's really a huge disadvantage for any first-term incumbent. The first 2 years in, that's when all the people, that's when all the people react. So there's a very good probability, given that we had 5 seats in the House, we only came up 5 short. And Trump was talking last night about that the Republicans lost no House races, and that he had called most of the members of Congress who were running for the office so they could say that they got a call from President Trump, and it really helped them in their district to win in those districts. So, but remember that the left had been telling us 25 seats down for the GOP, and the down ticket races, the Republicans did extremely well, as I suspect the president did. And I don't think that the Republican Party split on Trump, but we've had that discussion about what happened in those 4 key states, in those blue states. And so Mitch McConnell, with Trump leading the charge, he's going to look like a hero. It'll lay the foundation for his run if he decides to do it, unless the governor of Florida jumps in. It's hard to say. But either way, Trump will be a kingmaker in the next, whoever, nobody's going to get the nomination without his nod. He has what we call denial power. So it's kind of like the Democratic nomination. If the black leadership is against a candidate, they're not going to get the nomination.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, there was a lot of discussion over the weekend. I guess it was a large event or a fundraiser down in Florida, and there was Trump, and on either side, who he had sitting next to him? Pompeo and DeSantis. People are talking about that's the bookends.
Yeah.
At one point during the event, Trump, leaned over, and there was a long conversation between DeSantis and Trump, and of course everyone's trying to speculate. Well, what was that? It could have been, hey, are you planning on running or what? Who knows? Could have been that. It could have been, I want you to run, or whatever. But I think we got those 3 people are some strong representatives for our cause, for the Republican ticket, for the conservative agenda. I can't think of any people any better than those.
Yeah, they're strong. They're strong.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. So you got your loser. I don't know about losers. I mean, kind of lost. I don't know. I guess I don't know. It's hard to pick losers lately. It seems like every time I pick something up, I try to stay as positive as I can on everything and the way things are going. But it's just like, man, it just seems like there's so much negative news all the time. It's almost hard to even pick a loser. And then when you look at winners, I mean, you can look at a lot of winners on the left who we wish were losing, even like Maxine Waters. She comes out for the Chauvin trial and, talks about her opinion on it and what she thinks should happen and how, there should be, we need to keep fighting. We need to keep in the streets. Well, what actually happens to her? Nothing. She gets chastised by the judge for the trial. But
he did say there might be a basis for an appeal, but
yeah. Well, did you hear the ruling today?
Which one?
They came out. The Chauvin trial. They came out. They found him guilty on all 3 counts.
Oh yeah, guilty on all
so
charges.
Maximum 40 years for the second murder count. Second degree murder, 15 years for the third degree murder, and I can't remember what the other charge is, but 10 years. So, he's looking at going away for a very long time. So I don't know. Let's see what happens tonight. Does that mean the cities are going to burn or not? Who knows?
No, the cities aren't going to burn. No, it doesn't work that way. The only way that was going to happen is if he was acquitted.
Well, you never know. We'll see.
No. There's not going to be any violence there over that. That's the way to getting it. That I don't think anybody's going to protest over that. I don't see white people turning out or burning anything over that issue. As much as they want to paint everybody as white racist, I don't really see that.
Yeah. So that's I don't know. It's very interesting. so you pick up any other really interesting tidbits this past week that you want to share? Because I did pick up something very interesting along the way, but you go first. You got
Tell, no,
anything?
I want to hear yours first.
Well, so one of the people I listen to that I've really taken a lot of, I really admire is Steve Dace. He's with the Blaze, and I've been following him for a good year. He was definitely a Trump supporter, but he started talking about during the election, and I'm a once a pastor, always a pastor, but I'm a former pastor. I planted two churches, and Steve Dace is a Catholic, and but what I like about him, I mean, he's one of the most knowledgeable people. I mean, his grasp of facts, statistics, and everything is just really unbelievable. But he brings faith component into it, and as being a Christian. But he did a montage, I guess, last week. I believe it was Friday, and he started off by saying, "Hey, I really don't. I'm not the person to do this. Unfortunately, the leaders of the church aren't standing up, and I'm not holy enough. I'm not righteous enough. But somebody's got to do this." And he did this whole montage on what he called, and I think these are some great topics to talk about. Maybe we'll get them all done tonight. Maybe not. But he called it the inconvenient truth of America. And he had 12 points that he went through. But the number one was this: that we now have to see ourselves as pilgrims and not patriots. His point is the America that we know is over. Don't kid yourself. It's done. We're in a new place. And quit thinking about being patriots. We're back to being the pilgrims who came here, and now we have to retake this land. And it's a whole different mindset. So, what do you think about that statement?
I think that's exactly correct. The African Americans, if you own a store, a restaurant, or a bar, you can't ban people from coming in because they're African Americans. And just because we're white conservatives, we have every right to sit in the internet cafe. Just if African Americans cannot be banned from going into a place because of their race or skin color or sex, then by God, we have every right to speak freely on the internet. And we have only our chains to lose. It is on us to take back the internet. It is on us to go back and boycott these big corporations and make them pay. And a lot of state legislatures are thinking about doing that now, where they're going to start making a stand against big tech coming in, and also the cancel culture, the corporate cancel culture. So it's time. I think you're going to see more and more of that happening. We are pilgrims. We have every right to be allowed to speak on social media. That just as every African American has a right to go into any store, any restaurant, any club, and not be attacked. We have every right to be there and to be
Right.
heard.
Don't
And
say
so,
too much, because we got 11 more and you're already starting to trample on some of them. So,
okay,
number two, we must now see ourselves more as sons of liberty than founding fathers. What he said is, it's not 1789 anymore. The
that's right.
country's lost as we know it. We're back to 1775 and 1776. We are now sons of liberty, and we are trying, to regain that. One of the things I heard that was really interesting, actually, he said this. I was listening to him today on his show, and this actually made me feel really good. And he put out a real challenge to us. He said, I don't know, for those of you that listen to Bill Maher, he has his HBO show, Real Time. Well, he's definitely a flaming liberal, has been. He's very, open about that. But like Steve Day said, in the last three shows that he's had, the last 3 weeks, he said, it's like I wrote every word that he said. He also brings out another person. I don't really know that much about this lady, but her name's Naomi Wolf. Do you happen to know who she is?
I do.
Okay. He said in the last month, he has talked more with her than anybody else in his life, including all the people at the Blaze Network, which is so he said, here's the thing that's happening. And he said, so if you want to talk about a win, and it kind of goes to this, winners. He said, what's happening now is people on the left, Bill Maher, Naomi Wolf. He says, we may not believe. He says, in the past, here's where we were. We we had liberty. What we were fighting in the past about was how do we use that liberty? Pro-abortion, anti-abortion, things like that. He said he wouldn't agree with half of the things Bill Maher agreed with. He said, but here's what's happening. We're now becoming unified as a people on both sides. It's not about the right and the left anymore. What it's about is freedom versus tyranny. And people on the left are seeing the same thing. So Bill Maher,
Right. That
Naomi
is
Wolf,
exactly right.
right, what they're doing is saying, hey, this is, we don't believe the same way on, maybe on climate change. We don't believe the same way on maybe a tax structure or taxing the rich. But here's what we do believe. We believe in freedom and liberty. And so he said, this is a great time for all of us, because he says, this is the opportunity for us to work together. We've got to stop you're the bad guy, you're on the other team, because there's going to be all of us that come together that have the same purpose now, and it's freedom. So really what we are, we're sons of liberty again. And
Sons of Liberty. That is
yeah,
a great point.
yeah. One of the things you might have heard this, Lee, I never had. Somebody else I listened to, and they talked about how I've never heard of it, called the Miracle of Philadelphia. But when they came together, we have this belief that all of the founding fathers, they just like were kind of in the same golf club or something, and they all got along. They weren't just separated on slavery or anti-slavery. I mean, when you look at the religious component, they had all these different denominations. Some states like Rhode Island formed a state just to have their own religious freedom because they weren't the same as the other people. And he says, so these people did not get along. Not at all.
That's
Nobody
right.
back then, they said, ever expected them to produce what they produced, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. But here's why they did. Their common goal was freedom.
That's right.
That was the common goal. Freedom,
right.
and to be, to get away from the oppression of tyranny. Well, that's what's happening.
Well, see, Ronald Reagan said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, because it's on us. Each generation has its unique fights, and it never goes away. 100 years from now, you're still going to have evil people wanting to do evil things with power.
Yeah.
And so freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It's a great. I love the Pilgrims. I think that's exactly right, and I do agree with you. I'm optimistic. Now that the shock is worn off of all the bad people out there, there's awareness creeping in on the part of many of us, and I think that's really a very big step. It's we're out in the wilderness, but you know what? Sometimes when you're out in the wilderness, it empties you out. You're not you think about things, you reflect on things, and things that you wouldn't otherwise consider when you're running the show and everything is hunky
Yeah.
dory.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any, and we have the basic founding principles of this country at our back, where these other people are doing things that to support a corrupt, evil system. So it isn't the same America. It's we
Yeah.
got to remake it all
Yeah.
new, all
Number
new.
3 for him was America was founded as a Judeo-Christian country with limited government. Now it's a pagan country with limited liberty. He says that's the context we have to operate under. We don't get hung up on the America we knew.
That's right.
It's not there anymore. It doesn't exist anymore.
And you're already seeing a revolt. Like if you see the Pure Flicks and some of these other, you're starting to see pro-Christian programming, and I think that's gonna continue to accelerate. And I think you're going to see more. Look at it this way from an entrepreneur's point of view. There's 100 million pro-liberty Americans in the United States, roughly. That's a very big underserved market. That's a big market, and smart entrepreneurs are going to figure that out, and they're going to start playing to that crowd because that is actually the majority.
Yeah.
whether, and
Right.
so when people start to realize that there's a big financial percentage, you're going to see entrepreneurs and pro-liberty businesses, you're going to see more pro-liberty banks, you're going to see, migration to credit unions and more conservative instruments. So yeah, this is what needs to happen. And, maybe we needed to get our asses kicked. Sometimes that's a good thing.
Number four, the Constitution is a dead letter. Here's what he said. He said, if you even look at what's happening with the Constitution, even Supreme Court rulings anymore or federal court rulings, it's not about the inspiration of the Constitution. It's not about what the Constitution says. Even when we win, it's because of some technicality. The Constitution is not driving what we do anymore. Now, and that's part of, remember, Sons of Liberty. That's where we are. We're not founding fathers anymore that can
We have to
rely on these
reinvent. We have to
documents.
reinvent.
Yeah. Well, you know what? What did Biden just say? Remember last week? There are no, he said you can't look at these amendments as being absolute. He talked about
Right.
that in with gun control. He said, "Oh, I don't see what we're talking about as violating the Second Amendment." But besides, you can't, count any of it, any amendments as being absolute. So, what does that mean? Does that mean, we can't, the Third Amendment? Does that mean that we can't depend on soldiers not being put in our house? Does that mean we have to abolish, or does that mean this anti-slavery amendment? Does that mean it doesn't exist? It's not absolute. I mean, what does it mean? So that's where we are. The Constitution is dead for the most part. What do you think?
I think it's on us to reinvigorate it, and societies can regenerate themselves. But it's yes, we have to reinvent. We have to reinvent from the ground up on the common principles that with Bill Maher and others,
Yeah.
and those are the common binding principles. And the more on these tyrannical SOBs run around free, causing problems, I think you're going to see more and more reaction against it. So it's a wake up call, and it's something where you're going to get a large number of people. It only takes 5% of the electorate to really make big changes.
Yeah.
The founding fathers didn't have but like 3%.
Right.
Everybody else was neutral.
Yeah.
So,
Number
if we
five.
get
Yeah.
smarter about what we do, and yeah, we have to be clever too.
His number five, and I think most of us know this. We have wasted decades with the National Republican Party with no real fruit to show from it. Thank goodness Trump, if there's anything you want to give credit to Trump for, was the awakening. Is that he awakened us to really what was going on with the deep
He
state, what
awakened.
was going on in the Republican Party. But, the Republican Party hasn't done anything for who knows how many years.
Well, they got taken over by hacks
Yeah.
and corporatists and people that didn't really. And again, that's bad news for Mitch McConnell. But I think I predict that Trump will lead a people's revolt that's going to do great things in 2022. And what a smart move for him to get behind that, because his probability of success is rather high, particularly in the House.
Yeah.
And it's going to give people a sense of momentum that they haven't felt for a while.
This one, number six, he said, we got to let go of the nostalgia for the symbols and institutions of America. I know the MLB, for instance, we're always taught that, apple pie, America, baseball, we just got to leave that. Even the military, for that matter, with all the stuff that's going on in the military and how we cherish them as a national institute. The stuff that they're doing now with wokeness and the radicalism that they're using in the military, we've got to look at the America that we grew up with, that we've known. It really doesn't exist anymore, and it's the same thing. And so we've got to be able to, to walk away from those things. And even like, hey, Coca-Cola, you could say in a way that's American. But one of the things, Coca-Cola's already started to soften its stance some because people started not buying Coca-Cola. So we've got to be able to do that.
Well, we've got to learn to throw our considerable weight around as a people, and that's really important for dealing with corporate people. They're basically cowards. It's just the other side is better at intimidation than we are. But you know what? When we start as we get better at identifying the corporations, we're going to do better. We're going to do better, no question. These are natural trends, unstoppable trends for that matter.
Number 7, and I think there's some headway here, but he said we've got to at least consider that we will no longer have free and fair elections. He went on to say, even if we had fair elections, who the crap are we going to vote for anyway? Because
Well,
our Republican Party has let us down so much. But
I don't
the thing
agree
that
with you
Georgia,
there. I think that state legislatures are going to do a much better job. This was a situation where the Republican Party hacks, and you and I have discussed this many times. They sat there on their butts, and then they ended up defending a crappy system when it didn't work. And I think there's going to be much more people at the polls and poll volunteers, and there's going to be more transparency because we had that right all along. It's just that we had acquiesced to it for so many years that on the critical election night we got caught off guard. The HR1 is really the must defeat bill, and I think it's going to be defeated at this point. And I also think that the District of Columbia will not become a state. And we already discussed how the Democrats did a U-turn on Puerto Rico when they started looking how popular Trump was in Puerto Rico with Hispanics. And they dropped that like a hot rock when they looked at those
yeah,
poll numbers. So, it's kind of fun to see. The other thing to remember is that the other side, pretty much everything they're doing is based on lies and media coverage. But in the end, that's a lot to carry, and they don't have anybody to kick around anymore. All they've got is themselves, and now there's no Trump to blame for all the problems. There's Trump just sucked all the air out. That's why you're seeing Cuomo catch more crap, and some of these people, now the media doesn't have anything else to do. They don't have the Trump distraction.
yeah.
So, we really don't know what the full consequences of that are going to be.
Well, the way I lean on this is I agree with everything you said there. But I think what we're really learning over the last couple decades, we've relied too much on DC and on Washington. What's
Yeah, the
happened is
state level
Washington,
stuff is so key,
yeah,
Eric.
Washington has taken the focus when it's really about the states. In reality, who cares if we have fair elections? What matters is the elections in our states. Look at what
But
Florida's doing.
but if the
Look at some of
state
the
if the
things that
state
South Carolina,
legislatures
Missouri are doing. Um, all of this is, hey, one of the reasons I agree with you, we want Kamala Harris to be president because she's so pitiful and people dislike her. Not they don't even like her in her own party. When they do the agenda that they do, all it does, I'm like, do it faster, do more of it because it just brings people over to our side.
That's right.
So but what it's done, all of this is it's a reawoken federalism, which is really in the Constitution, which we just talked about being a dead letter. The power's in the states. It's not in the federal government. And we've gotten away from that for several decades now. And that's really what this is fueling. And people are going to stand up. I talk with some of my friends and, oh, they're all depressed and everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I mean, I have faith in the American people. We are not going to go quietly in the night. We are not going to allow things in our states and in our schools and in our communities that Washington and LA and New York want to force upon us. It ain't happening. They can do whatever they want, but they're not going to do it to us. So that's to me how this relates a little bit.
That's great, Eric. Um, let's see here. We're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, a few more
So if you
minutes.
got, let's give me one more of those.
This one I'm going to skip this one because we kind of talked about it. We've also talked
I love the
number
list,
eight.
but
Number eight. I'm just going to say it, but we have talked about it that we are imminently going to be banned from all mainstream platforms
oh
of any
yeah,
kind of significance. Number 9 is we need to create our own subculture and ecosystem, which you already discussed earlier. I like what he pointed out. The reason we need to do that is for our children, is for our grandchildren, because we do not want them to be in this liberal progressive system because they won't know what we know. I was just listening to something right before we got on. I don't even know where I was listening to it, but during COVID, prior to COVID, 3.4% of homes in America or children in America were homeschooled. a year of COVID, it went up to like 5.4%, 5.5%. But when everybody went back to school, and now we're on the other side in many respects of COVID, you know what the homeschooling rate is now? It's 11.4%, over a
And
300% increase,
the
because
law of
people
unintended
realize,
consequences.
yeah, because people have realized we can teach our kids as good or better, and we don't want what they're teaching us. Along with that article, or what I was listening to, and it's in North Carolina. There's now a group in North Carolina that has a website for you to publish and to put up anything your kids are being radicalized, whether it's the 1619 project, if it's any of that, anything that if it's all the things about transgenderism and everything else. But they've got a website now to put it up, where they did this in North Carolina, because it's even in North Carolina, it's pretty persuasive what's going on in K through 12. And
Absolutely.
so, it's just awesome. What it's going to cause us to stand up. Number 10 quickly is there ain't enough of us. And I think this is an important part. There's not enough of us to completely overtake the spirit of the age, but there's too many of us for the spirit of the age to assert itself completely. And I believe that this, with Steve Dace, I told you I've been listening to him for over a year. Even before the election, he was saying it doesn't really matter if Trump won, even though he's a Trump supporter. Didn't matter if Biden won. Didn't matter what party's in control. There's a spirit of the age. It's demonic. It's the devil that is pushing all of us in this direction. There's not one person. There's not one party. There's nobody going to solve it. And we need to understand that. I believe that what we are actually facing is evil. It's not just personality driven. It's not just it's bigger than all of us. And lastly, he said, for those in the audience, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that are Christian and your faith has been very important to you. He said the only thing that's really going to save us is revival. Revival or bust. You go back to what this country was founded on. It ties into number one with the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims came here because of religious persecution. They came here, they brought their faith. They built a country, the early fathers who, were highly influenced by the Reformation and the Pilgrims. They built this country on faith, on Judeo-Christian principles, which is what has made us the greatest country in the world. And there's nothing we're going to do that's secular that's going to fix this. It's going to take a rebirth and a revival. So for those of us, we need to stand up. We need, number 11, I think he had was, we need to understand that we're in the broader culture. We've got to see ourselves as subversives as well as servants, and part of the servants part and everything goes along with working with people of all types.
That's right.
But we need to be subversive. And like he said, in the Bible, for instance, for those of you that study the Bible, Paul said, you don't just go be a martyr for the sake of being a martyr. However, there's going to be the day that when we're where we are, that God's going to reach down and he's going to pull out of his quiver that arrow, and it's going to have your name on it. It's going to have Eric Kramer on it, or it's going to have Lee Bellinger on it. And when he pulls that is your day to do whatever it is you've got to do for the cause. And it's for the cause of freedom. It's also for the cause of the kingdom of heaven. So that's kind of
on that note, we're going to close. And I bet there's a few atheists that are applauding all that sentiment as well. But well, the state is a fearsome thing. And anyway, so thank you again, Eric. This has been awesome, and I'm looking forward. I would like to keep going through that list next time. That was actually a really great exercise to kind of put those things in context and help people try to understand. Because I think people are looking for hope and understanding, and there's a lot of good if you're willing and able to look for it. Never forget about gratitude. Gratitude is a very important thing, especially when things aren't going well. Gratitude is much more important when things are not going well than when things are going well.
Yeah.
And remembering that is so key. and it's all part of being a subversive as well. So, so I like that. I like the subversive piece as well. So, Eric, great talking to you, and thanks for bringing such great topics to the conversation this time.
Well, hey, I just relayed them on. They weren't my original thoughts. I wish I could say they were all my original
Well,
thoughts,
yeah,
but
you know, Reagan
but
said that I didn't. He said I never really was a great communicator. I just communicated great ideas. That's
well,
what he said,
that's actually what I felt I was doing, and
and he
it's
did.
great to talk about, and it's the kind of thing we need to be talking about as conservatives, as pilgrims, and
As
you
as
know, so
as pilgrims, we're
yeah, as
pilgrims.
pilgrims. Yeah, no longer patriots. We are now pilgrims.
Well put, Eric Kramer. Awesome conversation.
Well,
Thank you for your time this week. I'm
you
looking
too,
forward to
Lee.
doing. Well, I'm looking forward to doing some more of this with you soon.
Sounds good, man. Have a good week,
Love the flag.
everybody.
Love the
Be
Air Force
blessed.
flag. Love the Air
Oh
Force
yeah,
flag. It beats. I think it beats my borderless flag.
yeah. I
But
like my Crusader on the other side.
yeah, that too. Yep,
Yeah,
that's.
I'm big
Well, I was
time.
going to bring that up next time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
Maybe you
next
could
time.
switch them just to keep it up and interesting. I'll
Yeah,
see you,
okay.
buddy. All right.
Later, man.
Bye.
Have a good week.
See ya.